I'm about to. Okay, well, good thing. We are on a runoff. They didn't get whoever won. I think John Whitmire got a little bit more than Sheila Jackson, but
Sheila Jackson
Lee. I don't know why I said that like that, but he didn't win by a big enough margin, so now they're at a runoff. December 9th, I think.
We gotta revote.
Yeah, the city got to vote between those two.
Also,
Sheila Jackson Lee.
We all gotta revote.
Whitmire.
I thought I was finna go for Whitmire, but I don't know.
Do you know why you would want to go for Whitmire?
I just have always heard the Sheila Jackson Lee.
What's wrong with her? She's been your representative since you were born.
I feel like she ain't done enough representing.
How you know?
Because I feel like there hasn't been enough.
How you know? This whole neighborhood been getting gentrified. How you know?
That's why. How you going?
Economy up for this neighborhood.
How you gonna be a minority and be pro like minorities getting kicked out of their?
This is a complicated question. That's a complicated answer. Because she may not necessarily be pro them getting out, but she might be pro them having a better life. And if they get a good check off of selling that land and they go to the suburbs, they might be living better.
That's such a weird way to put it. But that, like, why would you just
but it's true,
out
though.
of their homes? Oh, Clayton Homes. Them subsidized. It's so sad. It's so
which
weird.
one?
The Clayton Homes. Clayton Homes.
Oh yeah. The Project 8 housing.
Clayton Homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
I used to drive by there every time I went to school, and now I see nothing.
yeah, because they're gonna make it into an apartment complex probably.
Crazy.
And that makes you sad?
Yo, you know the fucked up part?
I've seen those houses since we were little.
I know, but they just probably moved. Like they probably just moved.
I heard
like,
they
moved
didn't
the housing.
rehouse people. They just kind of was like,
Peace.
go do your thing, figure it out type of situation.
Okay.
But you know what's fucked up? Besides that,
I'm not sure Sheila Jackson had anything to do with that, but okay.
I'm not trying to get into those kinds of conversations out here, but you know what's fucked up? You know the lofts right there off Navigation? Well, you know how like right in front of them now they're building some new apartments, some nice luxury looking apartments. They like fucked up their whole view of the city.
Yeah.
Like you can't even look at the city pretty no more because that
From
damn
lofts?
apartments is there.
Yeah.
That shit sucks.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
They're gonna overcharge you for it though. Now.
Who?
The
other peoples?
The other peoples.
Yeah, for sure. That's just crazy. But honestly, like low key, the fact that like all of that area has now been overrun by apartments is a little kind of
Concerning for you?
concerning. Well, and
This is a good conversation. I don't think we have enough time today, but we could put a pin on this. Like, what do you guys think, like, in general about that whole entire thing?
because it's a lot. You seen how many apartments they're building in that area?
Yes.
It's a lot.
I am not necessarily against it. I don't necessarily care. But I understand the nostalgia bit. I understand how nostalgia can be a very powerful tool to make you go against certain things that are unfamiliar to you. But I also have this tug of war, because in my mind, like I grew up. We grew up here in Second Ward, and I had to really bear the brunt of it. So in my mind, I'm like, what am I actually trying to preserve? Like I have to ask myself that question. Like, what am I actually trying to preserve? Because what I'm not trying to preserve is them thugs that kept on jumping me every time I was walking home from school. What I'm not trying to preserve is that cop harassing me because I have a big ass backpack and I'm a little sixth grader walking home.
Yeah.
What I'm not trying to preserve is the neighbors hating each other because we were parking in front of their street parking that didn't really belong to them and whatnot. What I'm not trying to preserve is a drive-bys. What I'm not trying to preserve is the crack house at the end of the street. What I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? There's plenty of things that I'm not trying to preserve.
They selling that house a little real nice on the inside.
I know, but you know what I'm saying though, right? Like I'm not trying to preserve those things. So what am I actually trying to preserve? Mm-hmm. Am I trying to preserve just the fact that everybody in this neighborhood is Hispanic? Mm-hmm. Am I trying to preserve that?
I agree.
The fact that everybody in this neighborhood suffers with the same like economic disparity? What am I trying to preserve here? Am I trying to preserve just the fact that the corner store sells tortillas? Like, what am I trying to preserve?
I think overall, like, I think it sucks because it's like you are inherently misplacing. I don't even think losing is not the right word, but I do think it feels like almost like you're misplacing a part of your identity of being a Latino in this area, because this area, like, the fear of losing places like Flamingo, losing places like La Panaderia,
right?
Like losing these little places that like we find value in them inherently because of our traditions and our ties, our cultural ties, that maybe other ethnicities and of other different walks of life coming into this area might be like, oh, like, yes, I know it's there and I know my money will like go towards bettering the area, but I don't particularly care to go to these places because they don't look like Villarcos, for instance. Right. Like you look at Villarcos and you're like, oh, they do this huge like display of Mexicanness or Hispanicness that like a panaderia is not gonna go through that. They're gonna be like, look, it's a panaderia. Like this is what it is. You come in, it looks dingy. It's supposed to. That's the whole point. And that's just that. You know, like it doesn't have to be more than that. And I think a lot of the times, as different people from different walks, even people from that's why I don't want to say like a specific person or a specific group of people, because even our ethnicities, like even people who come from Hispanic ethnicities, I think it has a lot more to do with like how much money you now have like fluctuating or running through your households. Sure. You don't, more often than not, like if it doesn't paint that picture of like it's chic, it's like a chic little Hispanic place, it doesn't always catch your eye enough to want to be like a supporter of it. Right.
But so like here's the other side of that coin though. Yeah. Say you don't want to lose the panaderia, right? And the panaderia is at the brink of not making enough money so that they have to sell to a developer, right? Part of the reason that panaderia is at the brink of having to sell is because the community didn't support it in the first place. So what are you trying to preserve is my question again. If you were really trying to preserve it, you would have been there all the time so that the panaderia could stay afloat.
That's the thing though. It's like the reality, yes, that might be true, but at the same time,
there could also be like bad financial management. But
at the same time, it's like the more that you develop the areas around this place, inherently, even if the panaderia does nothing to change its cost effectiveness, the taxes are going to go up because your house is worth more than the panaderia. True. And the panaderia you could say like didn't ask for that. So the panaderia could have been like, I'm not trying to lose my business, but I cannot afford to do all of this more because I don't have that equity. And I was fine when this was a predominantly Hispanic, lower income area because I didn't have to pay as much taxes. In fact, that's maybe why I came here and chose to uproot my business and my life here. So now that external forces are being like, I want this to be a more gentrified area. With money, really, it's not really people, like a certain kind of people, but it's like they might now sit there and say, what do I do now? Like, how am I supposed to draw people into this place that is actually looking like what we're used to? We don't find discomfort in walking into little rundown places because we're immigrants or children of immigrants who, that's what we did. We went into Del Sol all the time, looking all fucking dingy looking and motherfucking gorditas out here looking, coming off of this whatever. Like that was not weird to us.
The other side of the coin is that now I would argue that there's probably some examples of some of these businesses getting more business because because people want to go into artisanal, but that's what I'm saying. Like run down, more authentic.
But that's where I point the difference or distinction between somebody like Villarcos and somebody like a panaderia like the one here, because of the fact that Villarcos paints this picture of artisanal. It has all these drawings outside. It has this specific picture to it that makes other people feel more comfortable walking in there and be like, oh, it's tacos. Like it's breakfast tacos. Meanwhile, like you look at how the panaderia looks like and you're like, that just looks like a little rundown. It doesn't give like a pizzazz. It doesn't give el bolillo. Like if they were to put a bolillo somewhere around here, people would be eating it up because they're like, oh, it looks nice, it's new, it's shiny. Like it's wow, it's so let's go get bread. Let's go get sweet bread. I heard that's a good thing. Like let's just go figure out what it is. So it's gonna pop off. But like example of that being like there was one on Canal, a panaderia that closed down recently that we used to go to when we were younger. And it closed down. And I remember because I met the owner of it and they were like, it's just we're not. The people who used to come in here no longer live in the area. we are one of them. Like our parents moved out of this area.
Yeah.
And for various reasons, but like there's been others who did the same, and they're like, and the younger crowd, one, doesn't know about us, and two, like we are not appealing. Like we're not, right. We don't look like a Ninfas. We don't look like El Tiempo. We don't look like Viercos. We don't look like these like really picturesque versions of Mexico.
Right.
So like it doesn't sell. Like it just doesn't sell as much. And it's like, it's hard, I feel, for them, because sometimes they're like, is this even worth the investment of me making this look like a cafe now? Because that's what people want to see, when it's like, I never intended for this to be that. Like, how do I handle, you know? Yeah. And
well, as the capitalist in me wants to say, okay, well, if things are evolving, then evolve.
Yes.
Right? That's what the capitalist in me wants to say. But I also understand that, like, oh man, like maybe I didn't anticipate this. Maybe I didn't allocate for this. Maybe I was just skating by on a business level, and everybody was skating. My priority was to make sure that my employees were getting paid, and that everybody was doing well, and that this is just a turn of events that we were ill equipped for. Right? And in terms of small businesses, I get that. Yeah. In terms of the residents, I go back to the same thing.
It's tricky.
For me, it's very tricky, because again, what am I trying to preserve?
Yeah.
There's some like neighbors that we had that I loved, and there's some neighbors that we had that I'm like, you can go to hell. Mm-hmm. You can go fuck yourself all the way off. It was dusty. Right? So in some ways, I'm like, I ask myself, what am I trying to preserve? And if I want to be the advocate for how to make a lower income neighborhood not be a lower income neighborhood, right? In my ideal scenario, my blank check is, okay, let's figure out how to make this entire neighborhood become financially literate enough that we can all ascend together, right? Not show up already with money, that we can all ascend together, right? It's easy to gentrify something together collectively and then create something from already injecting money, and then to have nothing and then build it, right? And what does that look like? Well, in my opinion, it looks a little bit more like a strict government assistance, 2-decade long pursuit of money allocation for education, for services, for whatever, blah blah blah, and treatment for the ailments of the neighborhood, whether that's addiction, whether that's poverty, single motherhood, all of the things that plague us, right? All of those things we've got to address, and then at the top of it all, financial literacy, so that you can then figure out a way to build equity in your neighborhood, so that you don't get gentrified, so that you can just keep building it up, which is very, very, very highly difficult. I'm like, okay, but if we don't have the financial literacy, if we don't have any of those things, can I really blame somebody for taking a check?
Yeah.
Can I really blame somebody, and can I ultimately be that upset about the fact that it does get gentrified when the gentrifier is not necessarily coming in here like, oh, I can't wait to take away your thing, right? The gentrifier is just saying, like, I'm looking at this land, and this is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Because this could turn into something. So let me get in on the ground floor, right? And I have got the capital to be able to do it. And the person that's getting gentrified is never realized the potential of their... Or if they did, they didn't have the capital to try to make it into something, let alone the community at large.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were so busy, bickering and fighting with each other that we couldn't create an association, a neighborhood. What are they called? Not a watch, not a neighborhood watch, but like a neighborhood board. You know what I mean? To talk about, to be able to talk to our representatives, to be able to sit down and say, this is what the neighborhood is standing for. Blah, blah. Like we never did that, because we're so busy trying to survive, and we're so busy trying, you know what I mean? We're in this fight or flight mode, the whole neighborhood is. And then we're too busy trying to, all the things that plague us, all the things that we've been, talking about. So in a lot of ways, I'm like tying it back to the mayor, right? In a lot of ways, I'm like, can I really blame Sheila for that?
You're right.
Can I really blame Sheila Jackson Lee for that? Can I really blame somebody for taking a check and moving to Pearland or Pasadena or Deer Park or wherever, the north side, like in the outskirts, sitting knowing like, man, I just got $100,000 check for my dingy ass house. They're gonna tear it down. They're gonna build a townhome.
Yeah.
But I got $100,000. I've never had that.
Yeah.
I can go over here and get some land, get a house, and live okay for a while with the job that I have or whatever. Blah blah blah. Maybe not in this market because right now it's crazy, but like, you know what I'm saying, right? So. It's a complicated question. It's a complicated answer to figure out a complicated endeavor trying to figure out if Sheila Jackson Lee actually did a good job or not. In a lot of ways, I can make a case for why she has advocated for her community as well as she possibly could have.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, in a lot of ways, like you, I could make a case for maybe you could have done more.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the one thing about Sheila Jackson Lee, and this is not an endorsement by any kind, but this is one thing that Sheila Jackson Lee does really well. She is extremely outspoken. Extremely outspoken. And the other part is that she is a minority. She is black.
Yeah.
So, on a pure, almost emotional level, if I had to make a case for who's going to represent me better, is it going to be John Whitmire, or is it going to be the person that knows my community? I'm not even sure John Whitmire's ever been to Second Ward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that, or fuck Second Ward because it's getting gentrified, but I'm not even sure that John Whitmire's ever been to Acres Homes, been to Sunnyside. You know?
Yeah.
I'm not sure John Whitmire's ever set foot in any of these places. Right? The most John Whitmire signs that I've seen are in the Heights, Memorial, Spring Branch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a tough one. When I know for a fact Sheila Jackson Lee's been to Fifth Ward, I know for a fact she's been to Second Ward.
Yeah.
She used to go to Ripley all the time for like community meetings. You know? I know for a fact she's been to Acres Homes. I know that she knows what that struggle looks like. John Whitmire, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You know, in that sense, right? Now, Houston is a very complicated city. What you need on a federal level, right? You might not need on a local level. Houston is a very unique city. So John Whitmire is extremely bipartisan. Houston actually has a lot of bipartisanship. There's a lot of Republicans and Democrats that work together in Houston.
There's a lot.
Right? A lot of them, because most of the Democrats here are moderate. They're centrist. Yeah. And most of the Republicans are also centrist. Yeah. Right? So they could get along, in a lot of ways. And John Whitmire has a long history of creating bipartisan support for him. He's got a lot of centrist friends, Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, economically speaking, the city at large, not excluding a specific neighborhood or not, the city at large might benefit from somebody that is a centrist and more importantly has more sway in the Texas legislature.
Yeah.
Right? When he has to go to Austin and he has to speak on behalf of Houston.
Yeah.
Right? Sheila Jackson Lee may not be able to move around those circles as swiftly as John Whitmire could. So it's really hard. It's really hard to think about the kind of, do you want this centrist that has a lot of experience in Austin, moving through the Texas legislature, or being minorities ourselves, do we want Sheila Jackson Lee, our representative for all our lives, essentially, being somebody that may not be as effective on citywide policies, by the way, policy that may not even affect us, right? Mm-hmm. But we know for a fact, full well, that when she makes her voice known, that she's going to be coming through our perspective. That when she says my constituents wouldn't like that, she's not necessarily talking about the Heights. She's not necessarily talking about Spring Branch or Memorial. She might be speaking directly from the voice of somebody from Fifth Ward or Second Ward, Acres Homes, Sunnyside. How do you choose? You know? That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
I'm torn. And it's almost 50-50 split for me. I've got an emotional tug that wants to say Sheila Jackson Lee would be the person that I would vote for. But I also understand as like my economic bracket now and where I stand, some of those policies, some of those real estate, some of those taxes policies might affect me.
My biggest thing with like choosing or like siding with a side just simply because these people are of a minority. Like Sylvester Turner is also a minority, and like I don't feel like there was like a significant like difference between somebody who is a minority representing Houston. You know what I mean? So like, not to say that Sheila Jackson Lee like wouldn't be like different per se, but like I'm no longer looking at it in that lens of just like, oh, it's because she's a minority, because she might
Sylvester also didn't
understand it.
represent us. That's the other difference. Like the other key component to Sheila is that she was the representative of lower income communities.
Yes.
Sylvester Turner was never that.
So like, yes, I understand that, but I don't know. Like, I'm not too sure. I don't know.
You know who kicked ass as the mayor? In my opinion, Anise Parker. That was the gay woman, openly gay.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
She was dope.
I don't remember.
You were too young, probably.
I don't remember like anything that was done with it, but I do remember it being a big deal that she was like gay.
Yeah, she was dope.
She was living her life out here.
So yeah, I'm torn, and I think it really comes down to what you think is best for the city. If some of the proposals that John Whitmire is proposing, if you think that they'll benefit the city at large better, even though those policies might not affect you at all, then I guess he's the clear candidate for you. But if you would like to see more representation of your actual community, then Sheila Jackson Lee might be a better fit. She's also like, there was a leaked audio of her berating one of her staff members or whatever, where she was like being really rough or whatever, which jokingly in the realm of comedy, I made a joke about that being the most Houston thing you can say. Like I was like none of this sounds out of line for a Houstonian. Because she was just like, oh, these people are fucking useless and this and that. I'm like, man, speak your mind. Do your thing. Fire who you got to fire. We need work out here, right? But
we need quick-witted.
Yeah, I mean, we we got to know, like, this is real. Like, put people in their place. But I understand. I get it. But in my mind, I also see it as like, shit, if that's how she governs, I mean, I don't think that nobody should be treated that way. But also, if it wasn't her staff and it was somebody on the Hill, if it was somebody in Austin, the Texas legislature, and the representative was supposed to represent Midland and Odessa, and they were at Austin, and our mayor was like, I'm like, yeah, I fucks with that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Whereas John Whitmire is going to be like, sir, let's figure out a way. Like, can we try to reconcile blah, 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 this and that? But like, man, I don't, in a lot of ways, in some spaces, I'm like, I don't need you to be diplomatic. I need you to talk about your, like, be the voice of my outrage. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just food for thought.
Yeah.
The other big disparity there is that I think Sheila Jackson Lee's made it a big point to try to like marginalized groups a little bit more, LGBTQ, things like that, homelessness, things that plague the minority communities. And John Whitmire has more so stayed in the center and talked more about how he's always been for like gay marriage and pro LGBTQ, but he hasn't given any details as to how he makes that happen.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? But like Anise Park has been heavily like, no, this is their thing, like Planned Parenthood and like all that shit. Like, so I don't know. It's kind of a 50-50, but they're gonna be up again in December, and maybe we can film again before so that we can put out something about what we okay, that could be our homework. We can end like that. That could be our homework. We could look into John Whitmire's and Sheila Jackson Lee's policies, and then right before the election, we can film. Maybe that Monday we can film. I'll put out the clips as fast as possible to see if maybe in Houston at least we can get some people to watch what we think about John Whitmire and Sheila Jackson Lee as a whole.
Yeah,
because that's gonna be our new mayor. So anyway.
I mean, as Houstonians, this being a Texas-based podcast, it'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay. Anyway, hope you like that one. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe. I should come up with like a little jingle for like our entry and our outro. The Degenerates. Well, until next time, see you guys later. Happy Thanksgiving. Eat your faces off on the most patriotic holiday, the most American holiday. Peace.